Welcome to TriMet 101. Today we're going to be talking about streetcars, and more specifically, streetcar speed. You want to see something slightly annoying? This is how fast the Portland Streetcar operates. I'm going to show you exactly 60 seconds worth of video here, and let's see how much distance we cover in 60 seconds. I'm trying to show you the average example, so I'm not just going to show you us sitting there forever or whatever, just this is how the streetcar operates under normal conditions for 60 seconds.
Please yield priority seating to seniors and people with disabilities.
That's almost painful to watch, but it's the unfortunate reality of most North American streetcar systems, new and old. So how do we fix this? The solutions are transit-only lanes and transit signal priority. Let's start with transit lanes. The Portland area is no stranger at all to having transit-only lanes for buses. We have a lot of the nice rosy red bus-only lanes in the area, and even Grand Avenue has a large portion of transit-only lanes that have a streetcar track going through it. I'm showing you a clip now of what Capitol Highway looks like, as it has a pretty long bus-only lane that is used by a lot of services, so I will show you that now. The toxic Twitter commenters among you, which luckily, I think this channel's community is actually quite amazing. But let's say you are a toxic Twitter commenter. You might post something like, well, how is that fair that transit gets its own lane when a bus only goes through every 20 minutes, whereas cars go through travel lanes almost continuously? Well, this completely ignores the fact that buses are much higher capacity than cars, and are a more effective use of space than cars. So, if you start piling quite a few bus lines on top of each other, just like that part of Capitol Highway that I showed you has, well then, or like the Portland Transit Mall on 5th and 6th Avenues in downtown Portland, well then you start moving far more people on the buses than you would move if everybody were to just drive their own car. And on less vehicles with less operators than there would be people driving their personal cars. So what does this have to do with speeding up streetcars? Well, taking cars out of the streetcar lanes means that, well, now you don't have to have anything slowing down the streetcars. People, of course, have to come to almost a complete stop to make a right-hand turn onto a different street. And if you're right behind a streetcar, that's going to slow the streetcar down. That's just one example, but there are lots of things that cars can do that get in the way of streetcar travel, where people on the streetcars just want to get going. Getting rid of all cars in the streetcar lane also completely clears up the streetcar's line of sight down the trackway. It's just completely clear, and so they can drive at a better speed. Want something that makes even more of a difference? It's a little more expensive, but traffic signal priority. There are two ways you can do this, and no matter what, you'd have to retrofit it into the existing system. You can either add call loops in the trackway that detect when streetcars get close and can change the light, or you can add elements to the actual traffic light itself that do the traffic signal priority and detect whether a streetcar is present. No matter the solution, it should be advanced. If you go with adding call loops into the trackway at all the intersections, what should happen is that as soon as a streetcar is detected going over the call loop, it should trigger the signal to change. The operator should not have to sit there and push the call button and wait for that to all work. It should just work automatically. There should also be a way to detect if the streetcar is still sitting at an intersection and hasn't departed yet, and keep the traffic light green until the streetcar actually passes the intersection. That way there's no potential that it will get caught in the middle of the intersection before the light changes red, or that it would be going and the light just suddenly turns red. It'll only turn red after the streetcar goes through the intersection. You could get technical and add some sort of timeout function if the streetcar is still detected after, say, 2 minutes of being stopped at the intersection, to where it would eventually time out, but that's all stuff you could figure out later. But honestly, if you put the signal priority within the signals themselves and the traffic signals can detect when there's a streetcar there, I almost think that makes a bigger difference and might be a bit simpler. Ever since we added it to Division Street along the FX2 bus line, it seems like it makes a huge difference in the amount of travel time and how fast it feels like you go on Division Street. You just don't stop at the traffic lights. You only stop at the bus stations. You don't stop at the lights, and it's amazing. There are 2 more things I'd like to touch on, and the first is on-street parking. Lots of downtown Portland, and I guess the downtown of most cities, have a lot of on-street parking. And this includes right next to the streetcar as it's going down the street. Now I want you to imagine if all of the on-street cars that are right next to the streetcar were removed, and you weren't allowed to park on the side next to the streetcar anymore. Not only would this free up space that you didn't have before, but it would allow the streetcar operators to be a little more comfortable with operating at a slightly higher speed when there aren't cars that are closed in right alongside the streetcar. Now imagine you take all this space right next to the track and turn it into a nice protected bike lane. Bike lanes move people. Parked cars don't move people. The bike lane could be wide and protected and separate from the streetcar track, so you would have a streetcar track, a bike lane, and the sidewalk. All 3 are separate and have their own identity. The whole streetcar network should look like this. Another safety improvement would be to add what's sometimes known as leading pedestrian signals. It's just a safety improvement, really, but the intersection that pedestrians are at could get the walk signal about 2 seconds or so before the cars get a green light to go. That way, if people are turning from one street onto another, the pedestrians are already in the intersection, already visible to all drivers by the time the traffic light actually changes green. As the driver of any motor vehicle knows, you have to yield to pedestrians. And if they're already in the intersection by the time your light changes green and you're going to turn from one road onto another, well, you're a lot less likely to hit a pedestrian that way. And since it's pretty obvious where the streetcar is going to go, thanks to the fact that there's a big old track in the road, the streetcar track and the pedestrian signals could change at the same time. Anyways, at a minimum, I would definitely like to see more transit-only lanes and traffic signal priority, not just added to the Portland streetcar, but to any streetcar system in North America, including the old ones like what you see in Philadelphia, San Francisco, or Toronto, but you really don't need to go all out with everything, like completely replacing all the signals and walk signals and things, but it would be nice to see. But like I said, at a bare minimum, just transit-only lanes and traffic signal priority, that is how you speed up streetcars. I already think that Portland's streetcar network is pretty good for a modern streetcar system, but we could truly be the best if we implement these now. Thank you for watching this, and I will see you next time.